So it's the beginning of February here in Texas, and it's time to plant potatoes. We're going to be planting them traditionally in the ground in a garden bed, and we're also going to show you how to plant them in containers. Now there are a lot of things that we're going to be planting today besides potatoes, but today is focused on potatoes. If you're in Zone 8B, you're also going to be putting in the ground peas and onions. So in a previous video, we showed you how to create a stale seed bed in your garden. You can go watch that video at the top of the screen. Right now, we're going to pull back our plastic and start planting our potatoes traditionally. And right after that, we'll show you how to plant them in containers, and we'll also show you where to find really cheap containers. So what we do when we plant potatoes in a bed is we make a very short mound, kind of like we do with sweet potatoes. We still leave enough soil in the center of the aisle to mound them up and hill them up at a later date when they start to come out of the ground, but this ensures that they don't get too wet and they drain properly. Now, you saw us add a little compost, and that was just to enrich the soil a little bit. We used our garden rake and just tilt that in on the top a tiny bit. And that's gonna add some much needed nutrients back into the soil. But potatoes need other things. Let me go over what those are. And that is, potatoes need a slightly acidic soil. Not very acidic, but slightly acidic. So we use this soil acidifier to balance that soil back down under a neutral pH, just under a neutral pH. Potatoes can do a wide range of different pHs in soil, but they prefer it slightly acidic. This has some pelletized sulfur in it. You can use pelletized sulfur to do it, besides this brand right here, but be careful how much you add. And the other is potassium. Potassium helps your potato plants produce a lot of big, beautiful potatoes. We add potassium in our garden in two different ways. One is by adding kelp meal, which is readily available for us at our local feed store. It is high in potash, which is a form of potassium. And the other is potash itself, which is potassium sulfate or organic sulfate of potash. Now you can see we're totally out of it because it's been incredibly hard for us to find. So we're going to use the kelp meal today. Additionally, this is going to be an important ingredient when we plant our potatoes in our containers. We are going to use about a half a cup per container, and we're going to use about a half a cup per 4 feet of lineal row in our garden bed. As always, we will have links to everything we've used on this project in the video description below. So the easiest way for us to plant our potatoes is to dig about 6 inches down through the center of our hilled mound here. We're going to put down a little bit of that soil acidifier throughout that trench that we just dug. Then we are going to add, like I said, about a half cup of kelp meal per 4 feet of lineal row. So now we're going to plant our potatoes. We're going to plant them 18 to 24 inches apart, depending on variety. If you have a huge russet potato, you're going to want them a little further apart. If you have, say, a Yukon Gem, which is a much smaller potato, plant them about 18 inches apart. You can either plant the whole seed potato itself, or you can do what's called chitting the potato, which is cutting a larger potato up into smaller pieces and letting the open wound cure for a few days to kind of cover over the wound with this leathery, dried portion right here. That's going to protect the potato in the ground. We've done videos on that before. Now you can see both of these have formed eyes on them, and you want to plant those pointing up. Now right around and above where I planted those seed potatoes are where your tubers are going to grow. And remember, when they start coming out of the ground, when you start seeing leaves come out of the ground, start to hill them up. Now let's head over and show you how to plant in the containers so that we can have dueling potato methods this year. And at the end of the season, we're gonna show you which one is best. Now it's time to show you how to plant in containers. Now, if you can find mineral tubs for free, which are used by cattle ranchers, by all means, pick those up. But we have two options in our area, and that is this one from Walmart, of course. This is $5, it's 17 gallon, and it's okay. It's a little thin, but this one is a horse feed bucket, and that is from Tractor Supply. It is the same size, but it is almost 4 times the price. Now, it is definitely more heavy duty. It's about twice as thick as this one, but $5 compared to $18, I'll take this one all day long. Plus, there are some other jobs on the Homestead, which this is much better suited for. So let's get to it. The first thing we're gonna do is drill some holes in the bottom of the bucket. So in my opinion, drilling a whole bunch of holes in the bottom of the bucket is unnecessary, and it also causes water to move through the bucket too quickly. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna drill one hole in the bottom of the bucket, and then we're gonna drill 6 holes around the outside edge right at the bottom lip of the bucket. So right about here. So now that we have the holes drilled in the bottom of our container, we're gonna add 3 very important things. We have some fresh compost, we've got some peat moss, and we've got some vermiculite, or you can use perlite. We're gonna mix these in our container at a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 ratio. Now the reason I said it's gonna vary for you is it's gonna depend on what you put in your bucket. You could use topsoil, but that's gonna compact down a little bit more. Since we are using a brand new light fluffy compost, we're gonna put less vermiculite and less peat moss in there. But just keep in mind, whatever mixture at whatever ratio you use, it needs to stay light and fluffy, which is the best growing medium for potatoes and for a lot of potato production. Of course, mix that thoroughly, and then we'll show you the next step. So this is important. You only want to start off with 4 inches on the bottom. That's where you want to put your seed potato. That'll give us the ability to hill up that potato over time throughout the rest of the height of the bucket. So it's at this level where you can add that soil acidifier, although you don't need much because peat moss is naturally acidic anyway. Definitely add your kelp meal. That is important. And like I said earlier, it's about a 1/2 cup of kelp meal per container. Now we also use Sustain, which is what urban farmer Curtis Stone uses. It's a 464 organic feed, and it will be incredibly beneficial for anything in the garden. We are not going to add it to this because our compost is so fresh, but if you're using a little bit older soil and you don't really know what the nutrient base is in it, then add something like this. So for a tub this big, we're going to actually add 2 potatoes. Now I don't recommend doing more than 2 because it's going to be so incredibly crowded. I've seen 5-gallon buckets that people put 3 in. I don't know how the potatoes have room to really grow and develop properly. So now we're only going to add another 4 inches onto the top of those potatoes. So in total, we're going to have about 8 inches of soil in the bottom of our containers with our potatoes sandwiched in between. Now we're going to give our potatoes a nice drink, and we're going to set them in the greenhouse. Just make sure wherever you put them, they get full sun. Potatoes love to be in full sun. If they can get 10 hours of full sun a day, they are incredibly happy. So put it in the best place possible on your homestead. So that's all there is to the 2 different potato planting methods. If you have any questions, leave me a comment in the comment section below. Now go check out this video right here, which shows you how to properly prune your raspberries. Have a great day. We love you. See you next time. Bye.